Welcome everyone to 3 Steps to Declutter Your Legal and Financial House. Your guides and experts for today's training are the talented Paula Jenkins, the founder of LFS Consulting LLC, and the brilliant Karen Oshanowa, owner of Karen Oshanowa Law Offices, a social enterprise and business law firm. Through this webinar, this tag team duo hopes that you will gain a few tips and key strategies that can help you eliminate stress, overcome fear, and gain a new sense of confidence when it comes to the topics of financial and legal situations and planning. Trust me when I say you are in good hands tonight. Paula is a financial coach who focuses on the 3 E's: encourage, educate, and evoke. She educates individuals, groups, and organizations on financial wellness. She ensures that people become better stewards of their money, and she evokes hope within her clients. When there seems to be no hope left, Paula helps her clients realize that there is in fact a way to move forward. And as I mentioned, she is joined tonight by Karen. Karen is a licensed attorney with a practice that focuses on social enterprise and business law. She's also an estate planning attorney. She enjoys working with social entrepreneurs, providing counsel to protect their businesses, ideas, and brands, as well as position them for growth and sustainability. Today, Karen will tap into her wealth of knowledge to help you better prepare your estate and legacy. So I hope you all are super excited and ready to dive in. Just a few quick reminders before we start. Number 1, there's going to be a lot of great information shared tonight, and I'm sure there are going to be as many questions as well. So if you have a question during this presentation, be sure to jot that question down in the Q&A section of Zoom. We will take a few moments at the end to address those questions that have been captured in the Q&A section of this Zoom. Number 2, if you have any problems technology-wise during this presentation, then be sure to send me a direct chat to support-Erica, and I'll be happy to help you with that. And finally, if you haven't done so already, go grab that pen or that pencil and some paper, because I know you're gonna want to take some notes. All right, everyone ready? You're excited? Okay. Paula, I turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Erica. Awesome, awesome, awesome. All right, everybody. Hello and welcome. Really great to be here. Really excited that you're here. And I am encouraged that you're going to learn quite a bit tonight. All right. So we're going to talk about 3 steps to declutter your financial house. Well, why are we going to talk about that? So let me first tell you my story. So a lot of times when we see this number, most people will say, I know what that number is, 180 over 140. Well, that number is an extremely high number. What that represents is my story. That was my blood pressure in October of 2017. Now, for most people, they would say, oh my gosh, that's so high. Well, my doctor actually said to me, you're going to die. And that was one of those moments in my life where I said something has to change. Now, why do I tell you that story? I tell you that story because that's how I ended up leaving corporate America and actually starting my own business. But I'm going to also tell you this also represents how many of us feel when it comes to money. When we think about money, we have anxiety or stress. There's some people doing very well when it comes to their money. But for a lot of people, a lot of my clients, they come to me absolutely in peril, absolutely stressed out. And it absolutely does give them high blood pressure. Even leaving my corporate job, I left a 6-figure job. And when you do that, that absolutely makes you recognize that you're going to lose a significant amount of income very quickly. Again, stress inducing absolutely when it comes to money. So what I want to talk to you about today are 3 steps to really declutter your financial house. On each of the slides, I'm going to talk about a tip. But more importantly, I'm going to give you an absolute direct quote from one of my clients. So this first client is, I can see how my dad's management of the family finances has impacted me as an adult. Why is that important? Because it's about your mindset. Tip number 1, you have to change your mindset about money if you're going to get your situation in order. One of the things that I think is so important is we don't do enough when it comes to understanding how our childhood impacted us as an adult? What do we think about money? What were we taught about money? And as we grow into adults, how do you want your money to work for you? This is one of those things that I think a lot of people say, oh, Paula, it's not that big of a deal, but it is. If you don't change what's up here when it comes to money, I'm telling you now, it is not going to change. How you spend your money starts with your mindset about it. What do you want it to do for you? What do you want it to do for your children? What do you want to do for your family? How do you want to show up in retirement? You have to understand that, and you've got to take the time. And this quote is so important to me because what it did is it allowed us to have a conversation about what this person saw in their home. And what they saw is their father, who handled the finances, didn't talk about money with the children at all. Her mother definitely did not understand what was going on with the finances. And as she got older and the father lost his job and the mother knew nothing about finances, they ended up going from what they would consider a very high middle class environment to really struggling. And as a child watching that, understanding that, again, not being taught all about money made a difference. So again, this tip is about changing your mindset. And I want you to look at those questions on the screen here and ask yourself, what do you really think about money? What did your childhood teach you? What were you taught about money? And let me be clear, for most of us, we were not taught this in school. I will tell you, it's one of the biggest things that I hope we move forward for our education system to make sure that our kids are taught about money before they graduate. How do you want money to work for you? So again, tip number one, change your mindset about money. I'm going to add something here. I actually went to an open house last night for my daughter's high school, and she has a personal finance class. And I learned it is a graduation requirement. That absolutely gave me chills. So again, as a high schooler, they are saying we have to teach this before you graduate, and it is now required. Boy, do I wish I would have had that before I headed off to school. Tip number two. So the quote here, I finally understand how to be clear about where my money is going. This came from a client that has worked with me for quite a while. And we really spent a lot of time trying to unpack and understand where is their money going. And as my clients know, I talk about it all the time. You need to tell your money where to go. You need to make sure that you are planning where your money is going to go. Now, for a lot of people, they don't like the word budget. So I always say, you can call it a budget plan, you can call it a cash flow plan, you can call it a spending plan. I don't care. I don't care what you call it something, but you need to do something when it comes to your money. Why? Because when we tell our money where to go, that means we're in control. And I want you to be in control of your money so you can ensure that you don't have some of the issues that so many people have when it comes to living paycheck to paycheck. So these are the kinds of things we talk about when we say, well, how do we do this? So first of all, understand how much money you need. You know, one of the first things I do with clients is I ask them, do you know how much money you are spending in the area of food or entertainment? Do you know how much you're spending on transportation? Do you understand how much you're spending in debt? Do you understand any of that? Because if you do, great. But if you don't, how in the world can you tell your money where to go? The second thing, look at all your auto pays. We are definitely in a society right now where it is all about ease, ease, ease. And I will say, yes, auto pay is one of those great technology things that we have. But here's the thing with auto pays. The amount of my clients that absolutely, unfortunately, have overdrafts, forget about some of these auto pays, that then takes money out of their account, and then they unfortunately don't have the money for other things. Make sure you're looking at that. You tell your money where to go. A lot of times we have those annual, quarterly things that pop up, we forget about them. Do you know what's coming out in October? If you don't, go back to last October and see what came out on your accounts. The other thing, reduce expenses. Well, what do we mean reduce expenses? Look at what you're doing. Look at what you're spending. Do you need to absolutely do that? My clients hear me talk a lot about needs and wants. And I know for a lot of them, the hard part is being able to say, well, I really do need this. And as soon as they say that, I say, do you really? So what do I mean by that? Here's what needs are. The needs are food, you got to eat. Housing and utilities, you have to have a place over your head. Transportation, you have to get where you need to go, especially when it comes to a job. And the last one is clothing. And let me just be clear about the clothing. That does not mean a shopping spree. I'm talking about the basics when it comes to clothing. A lot of times we know that there's some things we have to get on a regular basis. Obviously, we're about to go into fall. The seasons change. That's where you really look at it. But all the other expenses, those are considered wants. And I spend a lot of time with my clients talking about wants. And for some of us, it doesn't mean that we have to forever give up everything that we want. Instead, short-term sacrifices. I talk about being intentional with your money. It doesn't mean that for those who like getting their hair done or their nails done or anything, that you can never get it done. What I am saying is you can get it done, but in the short term, when we're trying to address where your money's going, let's reduce that expense. This is not forever. Consistency. So what do I mean by consistency? When you do your budget, cash flow plan, spending plan, whatever you want to call it, when you do it consistently, you start getting an idea of where your money's going. And you start recognizing the things you thought were so important, right? Maybe aren't. So often we spend our money on things, for example, eating out. One of the things that I have found for most of my clients who use some of these apps, they are spending almost double the amount of money on the actual meal because of what? Delivery and tips. Think about that. I want you to really think about that. Now, here's what I'm going to say. For some of us, we don't use it. Some people do. But for those who do use it, I want you to think about that. Somebody just said, oh, that's a big one. It is. It is. I had someone look at the last few receipts that they had. And for a $10 meal, they ended up spending almost $30. Think about that. Tell your money where to go. Let's not spend that kind of money. Now, here's what I'll say. If you want to give them that kind of money, you go ahead. But I certainly hope you have stock in them. I really do. We have to think about it. So reduce those expenses. Consistency. When you consistently do a budget, I tell my clients at the beginning, it will usually take you about 3 months of tracking. Yes, I said it, 3 months. 3 months of truly tracking on a regular basis and being consistent about telling your money where to go. When you do that, you will get an idea of where your money really is going. And then your behavior will change. So let's go back to that tip number 1, right? What is it about? Mindset. When you start understanding how much money is being spent on, again, I won't say the names, but those deliveries, right? Or anything else that you're spending your money on, you will start thinking, okay, this is probably not a good use of my money. So let's make sure that we're consistent in tracking. And there's all kinds of apps out there for tracking, paper, pen, whatever works for you. But find something that makes you and forces yourself to track where your money is going. Consistency. So tip number 3, here's the quote. I will never be in that much debt again. It feels too good and free. So we're talking about debt management. Here's the thing. We have to address it. So this is a person who I helped get out of debt. And one of the things that I think was so hard about this is we sometimes don't even recognize how much debt we are in. Why? Because it induces anxiety, because it stresses us out. So the first thing we have to do is we have to address it. We have to absolutely say, okay, I'm gonna tackle this. I'm gonna put them all down. I'm gonna list them all out. I'm gonna make sure that I know every single debt that I owe. And I am talking about all kinds of debt. That is credit card debt. Oh boy, the dreaded student loans. It's medical debt. It's personal loans. It's the 401k loans. Yes, those two. It's the IRS. Anything and anybody you owe, you should know that. You should have the list. And I will be clear, I get it. It is hard. I'm no different. It is hard when you see all those. But once you at least have the list, you can start addressing it. Now, the other piece of this is make sure you get your credit report. I don't think everybody understands you can get a free credit report from annualcreditreport.com. That is from the government, all 3 agencies. Now, many people will tell me, well, Paula, I can get it from Credit Karma. And so here's what I tell them, but Credit Karma actually doesn't give you all the information. I know people think they do, but they don't. They don't. So the best way to get it from this site. It is free. And I'm not talking about getting your credit score, just a report. And I see somebody just said in the chat, I got this. Great. So proud of you. But for those who haven't, get this. And here's the beauty right now. Because of the CARES Act, you can get it on a regular basis. Usually, it is only once a year. Now you can get this every week until the CARES Act is up. So make sure you take the time to get your credit report from all 3 agencies. Because here's the thing. A lot of times there are things on there that are inaccurate. I have had clients, we've pulled this and we've gone through it and we have found a ton of inaccuracies. Make sure you're going out there and getting this report. Due dates. One of the things that I do with my clients in the beginning is we talk about the different due dates that they have for things that they are paying. And when it comes to debt, sometimes we're so overloaded paying all the things off of one check. It really makes me understand why they don't have any money left over, especially those paying rent or mortgage at the first, and everything is coming out at the beginning. Most people don't know you can call most companies and actually request a change in due dates. So if you are heavily loaded at the first of the month, the 15th of the month, or the end of the month, look at your paycheck, look at when money's coming in, look at your due dates, and go and ask them, can it be changed? Don't be so overloaded with paying everything on one check. And then use the debt snowball method. So what is that? So a lot of times when people come to me, we talk about trying to pay off debt. And we talk about, I want to get out of debt as quickly as possible. Okay. The debt snowball method is when you, again, let's go back to the top. You list out all of your debts, but then I want you to order them from smallest to largest. And I did not say interest rate. I want you to list it out from smallest to largest. And when you do that, you will see, okay, now I have a bill that maybe is $200 that I owe. And if you do, okay. And then maybe the highest one is $80,000. One of the things that's so important here is when you outline these, it allows you to understand all that you owe. And then we focus on paying off the lowest one. Does anybody know why we do that? And if you do, put in the chat. Why would we pay off the lowest one? Why would we not look at the interest rate? Because a lot of times somebody will say, well, Paula, I'm paying 30% interest rate. I'm paying this and I'm paying that. Anybody know? I'm going to tell you. By paying the lowest, I'm going to go back to mindset. Yes, it gives us the confidence to pay off the big stuff because you've accomplished something. You accomplished something. I'm going to tell you this, guys. So much of our behavior is about mindset. When you pay off that $200 bill, yes, thank you. Gratification, right? Man, I paid it off. Boy, does that feel good. Do you know if you try to go after that $20,000 bill, how long that takes? After a while, you're going to get frustrated, right? But boy, if I pay off this $200 bill, now I'm going to go to the next one. And I'm going to take what I was paying, the minimum on that first one, and move it to the next one. That's a powerful thing. I have a client. We had probably about 6 debts when we started in January. Pretty large. But at the end of the day, we are now down to one owing less than $250. And that was all because of the debt snowball. Again, understanding, sort them, focus on one. The lowest one, pay it off. Boy, did that feel good? Yes, it does. So I want you to really understand when we talk about this debt snowball method and the debt management. Understand. And here's the thing. I've got some people, and I even have clients who don't have any debt. So then it becomes, okay, I don't want you to go into debt. So that's another piece of this. Let's not create new debt. If we can absolutely go through things and say, okay, I am not going to do anything when it comes to debt at all. Let's not create it, okay? And I recognize for a lot of people will say, okay, well, I want to buy a car, I want to buy a home. I want you to go back to mindset. I want you to go back to mindset. Save for it. Save for the car. And I get it. For some, we can't necessarily save, hundreds of thousands of dollars, but let's try to save as much as we can so we can reduce. Why is that important? Because so often when we don't do that, we end up paying far more for like car loans, 10% interest rate, 8-year car loans. Car loans should be really less than 4 years. They really should. But so often we don't have that. So let's not create new debt. So again, the 3 tips: your mindset, change your mindset. Number 2, tell your money where to go. And number 3, debt management. I cannot say this enough. The importance of accountability. One of the things I'm offering today is my 6-week group financial program. If you're ready to make changes, if you want accountability, if you want to be part of a group that supports you on this journey, we're here. Don't give up on this journey of trying to have a financially stable house. It's hard. The quote on here, it feels so good knowing I have money there and I don't have to touch it. That comes from a client of mine who back in December sent me a 2-page email. I want you to hear that, a 2-page email. In dire straits, filled with anxiety, did not know what to do anymore. As of today, the only debt she has left is her student loans, and she has more than $5,000 in the bank when she had nothing in the bank in December. Help is here, accountability is here. If you're interested, please look at the QR code. Certainly feel free to click on the link. We're here. We're here to help. This is what I do. I'm passionate about it. It is critical that I continue to educate people around financial literacy. And if nothing else, I want you to make sure that you have the best financial life you can have. I thank you so much. This is my contact information. If you're not following me, please feel free to follow me. These are all my social media handles. If you want to email me, you can. You can go to my website as well, or certainly call me. Again, I am here to help. This is what I do, and this is part of what I love doing. We are now going to go ahead and we're going to move to my co-speaker today, Karen, and she is going to help you declutter your legal house. Enjoy.
Thank you, Paula, and thank you for inviting me. Thank you, Dr. Erica, for your help in putting this together. And that was really awesome. I learned some things, and thank you very much. So tonight I'm going to be talking to you about estate planning, and I'm going to be talking about it from the perspective of decluttering, just like you would declutter your house. You have to purge that which is not serving you anymore. You have to organize what you have, and then you have to maintain it so that you don't fall into the pitfall of clutter again. So with that in mind, my goals for this portion of the webinar is to get you to recognize that you need an estate plan. Yes, you need an estate plan. And I want you to know what a proper estate plan consists of and how to funnel all the information that you have in your head and lying around your house in some form or another into an estate plan. And I want you, thirdly, to have the confidence you need to seek professional guidance for drafting your estate plan, if you don't already have one. And also, if you do have an estate plan or pieces of it, you need to see if anything is missing or needs updating. So purge, organize, and maintain, just like you would declutter your house. Okay, so what's the first obstacle or fear that we have when it comes to estate planning? Fear of death. A lot of people procrastinate when it comes to estate planning because, they don't want to think about the inevitable. They may even have friends or family members reminding them, hey mom, hey dad, if something were to happen, is everything set up so that we'll know what to do? But still, a lot of people procrastinate because death is a hard thing to think about. And then the next fear of not enough. Some people think, well, I don't have a lot of assets and I don't have much to go into an estate plan. Or maybe they think that estate planning is for the wealthy, people with mansions and vacation homes and yachts and fancy artwork with a lot of money to leave to charity. Then there's the fear of giving up control. Estate planning doesn't mean that you're just giving things away, giving away your assets. You have to take into consideration things like reducing taxes, but some people fear giving control of their assets to their children. They've heard perhaps horror stories about ungrateful children who spend the family savings or lose the house or, turn their back on their parents. So people want to hold on to this unfettered control over their assets. The next fear is fear of engaging an attorney. So fear of, retaining an attorney could be another big hurdle. You might be afraid the lawyer will think you're uninformed or unsophisticated. But that shouldn't be a reflection on your intelligence or your character, just like you would, call somebody in to repair your car or your air conditioning. This is what you have to do to get the services you need of an attorney to help you with your estate plan. And right in line with that is fear of cost. You might be afraid that, I don't know what you see on TV about personal injury lawyers or whatever kind of lawyers you see on TV. Maybe you think that you'll be price gouged by attorneys, or maybe you're afraid that the attorney isn't going to listen to what your wants and needs and wishes are, and they'll just come up with some cookie cutter plan that they'll slap together that really doesn't serve you or isn't what you want. And finally, there's the fear of dealing with other people. A lot of people haven't gotten around to putting their estate plan together because maybe they're private people and they feel like, I don't want to get people involved into my private matters that I've always competently handled myself. Or they can't think or imagine that, turning over the reins to someone else to handle their affairs, that's a big thing, whether it be family members or whoever. So I would encourage you, just like you would purge the unnecessary things in your house, to purge those fears and replace your fears with action. So your first fear was of death. Well, death obviously is inevitable, so you have to plan for it. You have to face your own mortality. Maybe, you have to find your own euphemism for death, such as, when I pass on, or when I meet my maker, or if something happens to me, just to name a few examples. People, will say anything rather than when I die. So if that helps you to get over it, that's understandable. And also, some people are superstitious. They think that making a will bring about death. But it may be superstitious, but still it's an impediment for people. But recognize that since you can't control death, let's control the one thing you can, which is to prepare for it in the best way possible. So as to the fear of not having enough, recognize that you do have assets. Would it surprise you that most people, disposition of assets is not the main reason to have an estate plan. So it's not just about leaving stuff to people. Like you might think, oh, I don't have enough to leave to people. The most important parts of a plan can help while you're still alive. So some of the important reasons to have a plan, for example, is nominating a guardian for your minor children. appointing somebody to make healthcare decisions if you're unable to do so yourself, or naming an individual to manage your assets if you can't do so yourself. So imagine if you or your spouse are in the hospital for weeks. If you can't speak for yourself, who's going to monitor your care? Who's going to give informed consent for procedures? Who's going to pay your rent and your bills? Does anyone know where your bank accounts are located or what credit cards you have? If you don't know the answers to those questions, then you need an estate plan. And then the fear of giving up control. Again, we exert control by planning in advance. So when you have a proper estate plan in place, it allows you more control than you could imagine. And also you're able to transfer things while retaining control, depending on how you structure it, and ways to protect your funds as well. So we're going to get rid of the fear of engaging an attorney and replace that with the fear, or rather with the action of engaging the professional services of a trusted legal advisor. So the key to that is just finding the right lawyer. Like anything else, you can get a referral from a satisfied client, which is the best approach, or you can ask your friends who they use, do some research before making your hiring decision. We're going to replace the fear of cost with looking for fair and predictable pricing when it comes to drafting an estate plan. Don't be afraid to ask how much the attorney charges. If they're charging an hourly rate, try and see if you can get some predictable pricing when it comes to an estate plan. Some of these things can be done on a flat fee basis, but it's more often times not just a simple will. I hear a lot of people say, well, I just need a simple will. So you really have to, plan for having a complete plan and not just a simple plan, but also it has to be a fair price. And lastly, we're going to replace the fear of dealing with other people by enlisting the support of trusted members of your family and those in your inner circle. So you're going to start thinking now about who's trustworthy, who's responsible, who has good habits and practices that you would feel comfortable with should you decide to make them executor of your will, or trustee of your trust, or the person who's responsible for making decisions about your property and your finances in the event you're unable to speak for yourself. So the next step in decluttering your legal house when it comes to estate planning is you're going to start putting your hands on like the physical things, tangible things that you have to transfer. Homes, land, other real estate. Where are those documents? Where are the deeds? Vehicles, cars, motorcycles, boats, where's the title to those things? Because when you draft an estate plan, all of that stuff has to be accounted for and written up in such a way that, you have the deed to this, the title to this, everything. It's described very well in the estate plan. Your tangible collections, such as coins, art, antiques, trading cards. Hopefully it's not in storage somewhere. Is it on consignment somewhere? You just want to be aware of the tangible things that you have to give away so that when it comes time to list them out, you know where they are. Furthermore, are there things in safe deposit boxes, safes, other locked and hidden places, and who has the key to those? What about family heirlooms? Where are the photographs? Where are the other irreplaceable items? When it comes time, say you want to leave your recipes to somebody, where are those? Do they know where to get them? Where are they located? And also, if you've had any of these things done, your wills, your living trust, deeds, other important documents, hopefully, that's somewhere that you can put your hands on readily. And if it needs to be updated, you see you haven't had anything done to it since like 1976, then you know that it's time to fix that. Oops, sorry, forgive me. Now, what about the intangible things? We've talked about things you can physically put your hands on and they may be located in a storage or somewhere. What about the ideas in your head, like your funeral plans? Who do you want to notify? What kind of service do you want to have? What about, I've always wanted to leave money to the Cancer Society. Okay, that's a wish in your head, but is the money readily available for that should you pass away? Who knows about those wishes? Have you started documenting them? And like I said before, what about, if something should happen to you, who do you want to take care of your minor children? Even your pets. I hear so many stories of people's beloved pets. As soon as they die, then they're like kicked out, or and they're going to the pound because nobody could care for them. Nobody thought to, see who could take in the pet. So they even have, pet trusts set up for things like this. Insurance policies. Usually those will have the beneficiaries stated on them, but have you looked at it lately? Your pension, your retirement accounts, do you need to update your beneficiaries? Maybe somebody you listed has passed away, or is incompetent right now and is not able to receive that money. Health savings accounts, bank, money market, mutual fund accounts. Look at the beneficiaries on all those accounts and see if those need to be updated. Stocks and bonds, even family history, like genealogy is a big thing now. Like, do people know the stories of your family, how you got from one place to another, things like that. All of these intangible things, by the way, are eventually going to get documented. So that's why, while they're in intangible form in your head floating around somewhere or scattered about, you want to start thinking about bringing them into order. Another big one is the passwords to your online accounts and social media accounts. I mean, obviously we want to keep those secret, but who do you trust to have those in case something were to happen to you? And is that documented? Also, ownership in a business. Maybe you forgot that, not forgot, but you don't realize that if you're in a catering business, say 50-50 with somebody, that's an asset, and you have to plan for that in the event something happens to you. So those are all the things that go into an estate plan, which are, by the way, a will, a living trust, power of attorney for property, power of attorney for healthcare, and any other advanced medical directives that you might want to have in place before you pass away or become disabled, so that everything is organized. And so the final step, like you would maintain all the hard work you just did in your house, you want to maintain your estate plan. And so how do you do that? Well, you seek professional guidance. You want, like I said, someone who's going to either be with you from the beginning to help get your things in order so that you can draft an estate plan. Or if you're recognizing now that, oh, I only have a piece of this, I only have a will, or I only have a power of attorney for healthcare. What about all my other stuff that, happens that needs to be passed on when I pass away? What's going to happen to that? So you need somebody to come in there and look and see, well, yeah, you have this piece, but you don't have this piece, or it's not complete. So again, seek a professional attorney, someone you trust, to help you put those pieces together to form your estate plan. And then once you have your estate plan, obviously you're going to want to maintain it well, and you're going to want to revise it if your circumstances ever change. For example, if you get married or divorced, you're going to need to update it. If you give birth or adopt a child, that's another circumstance where you'll need to update it. If you've left money to a loved one, but they've passed away, and say you don't, necessarily want the money you left for that person to go to that person's heirs, you might want to look at that, updating that. Also, if you get a job or are terminated from a job, maybe, the money is going to be different, so you might want to make some adjustments there. Also, this is a big one. People don't realize that when they sell or acquire real estate, their estate plan needs to be updated, because that property is either coming into the estate or is no longer in the estate. So if you have, a will or a trust that has a house that you no longer have in it, I mean, it's just no good anymore. So when you have these life events kind of happen, that's a good time to begin looking at your estate plan, updating it, and so forth. And then finally, I would suggest that you plan for a periodic review of your estate plan, just regardless of whether you have a change in circumstances. A lot of times, people who, in the worst case scenario, had made someone an executor of their will, and then came to find out that the person, had a gambling problem or a drug problem. You want to be looking at these things periodically to see, well, who is in there that really shouldn't be in there, and who do I really want to update and change around. It's just like, you have to look at it every now and again, because you never know what other people's circumstances are that might affect your own circumstances. So just take a periodic look once you have your estate plan in place. And that is decluttering your legal house from the estate planning perspective. All of my contact information is here. And if you would like to receive my client bulletin, which is called Preparing for Your Family's Financial Security, it goes into not just finances, but financial security really is, from an estate planning perspective, having the right documents in place. So we're talking about a revocable living trust in here. We're talking about probate avoidance, privacy, how to manage your assets without court adjudication of incompetency, avoiding will contests, and things like wills, what happens when you die without a will, other considerations for transferring your property. So it's a really good piece of information to have. And I thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to any questions you might have. I will now hand this over to Paula, because I believe we're going to have our Q&A session right now.
Thank you so much, Karen. And again, I learned a lot too. And I think this is one of those topics that I think is so important, as I tell my own clients. We can talk about budgeting and all those other things, but wills, estates, and power of attorneys are just as important when it comes to your financial plan. So really great job, Karen. Thank you. So what we're going to do now is Q&A. And so please feel free to put any questions you have in the Q&A box. I know we had a couple. I'm going to go through those. But we will certainly take any questions you may have right now. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and bring up a few that I have answered. If you have questions from a legal perspective, so if you want to talk about estate planning, please put those in the chat right now. So the first question that came up around the financial piece was, if I'm at the beginning, would you suggest a coach, advisor, or both? And will you explain if there is a difference? And so here's what I tell most people. In the beginning, start with at least a coach. An advisor can absolutely help you in terms of understanding your investment options, but most advisors may not necessarily go into your budget, your spending habits, those kinds of things. A coach, our main job is we manage your behavior with money. That's what a financial coach is. A financial advisor manages your money's behavior. It's a really important distinction. And so as a coach, I'm very focused on how are you spending money, right? Where is your money going? That advisor, which I always try to send my clients to, investment advisors, financial advisors, they're going to really focus on how your money is behaving in the market. So thank you for asking that question. Really good. Financial coach, financial advisor, two completely different things, but we usually partner together when it comes to our clients. The next question was, what are the tools to use to track spending? And does one work better than the others? And this is a really good question. I get asked it quite a bit. It really, really does depend on the person, because all of us have different behaviors, right? Some of us really love the analytics. We really love paper and pen. We really love Excel. We really love this. Some apps have really great functions for some person, others do not. I always tell people I use every dollar, but I also have clients that literally use Excel and just don't want to use anything else. I have other clients who've used YNAB, Mint, and there's all kinds of other ones. I'm a real big proponent of using something. So even if it just means paper and pen, that is a tracking mechanism as well, but use something. Great question. Somebody asked, are there any good tracking apps? I would see the same answer there. And then somebody also asked, what is the biggest thing you recommend for someone who is living paycheck to paycheck? So here's what I'm just going to say. I'll read the answer that I put. Know that there is help, and that they are not alone. I think too often we have so much shame when it comes to money in our situation, and we don't understand that we're not by ourselves. I have clients that make as low as $30,000 and who make as high as $250,000. And guess what? It's the same thing. It's behavior. It's not about money. It really isn't. It is about how we use our money. And so no matter what you're making, it's okay. There is something to be said for not having shame around it and recognizing I just need help. I had a client once who said to me when we first met, she said, please don't judge me. And I immediately said, if I judge you, I shouldn't be doing this work. But what that told me is there was so much shame and anxiety about being in debt and living paycheck to paycheck that she wanted to make sure that I wasn't going to judge. This isn't about judgment. The other thing is I also talk about that first thing to do is you got to start writing some things down. You got to understand where your income is coming in. Do you make enough for the expenses that you have? And if you don't, we got to raise the income and we got to reduce expenses, but you got to make sure you're at least looking at it. So again, knowing help is here. It really is. And accountability can also help, because I think sometimes we try to do things on our own and that's the hard part. So again, just knowing that a person can reach out for help, it is here. So really great questions, really great questions. All right, there is a question and I'm going to turn this one over to Karen because I think this is definitely a legal question. So Karen, I will give it to you.
Mm-hmm. Oh, should I read this? Oh,
I'll read it for you.
Okay.
I met with an attorney to update my will and to create a trust. We did not cover any of the other things discussed. Is this the difference between a simple plan and extended? How do I go back to expand to consider all of the things mentioned to include asset details? Is that a request for full estate planning?
Okay. Now I have never heard, now maybe the attorney has set his practice up such that he offers or she offers simple estate planning versus extended estate planning. But I don't do that because I tend to look at what does this client need? So I don't know if this was a cost saving measure on the part of this attorney. Whereas, you know, if you don't want to spend this much, then you only get this much. But if you spend this much more, then you get this much more. And that's kind of like, it's, I don't want to say it does a disservice to the client, but it does not take into the account the totality of the circumstances, because what it sounds like you've planned for is just death, but you haven't planned for if you get sick and have to go into the hospital, or, you know, some other eventuality where you need some decisions made during your lifetime. So yes, I would definitely reach back to that attorney because, like I said, it sounds like you've just taken care of one situation in terms of death, but what about during your lifetime if some decisions need to be made? Reach back to that attorney and see if you can get a full estate plan. And so if you noticed in my presentation, I didn't make any distinction between a full versus a half estate plan, because I think an estate plan takes into account all the circumstances you've got going on, everything that could happen, and put a plan together. Not to disparage anyone, but go back to that attorney and see what kind of situation or what kind of setup do you have for while you're still living. I hope that answers your question.
Great answer, Karen. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want more on that, just put it back in the Q&A if you need more information on that. Any other questions? Any other questions, whether it's around decluttering your financial house? Okay, it does. Great. Thank you. Or decluttering your legal house. Any other questions from anybody? This is the time. All right, there is another question. What are your thoughts on when making purchases or paying bills, always using credit cards for the rewards and never using debit cards? Love that question. I've gotten some debates over this one. So here's my thoughts. If you're going to pay it off every month, use it. I have a client who literally told me, I love my points. I'm going to use my card. And I said, that's fine. Are we paying it off every month? Oh, well, no. Okay. So we're worried about points, but we are absolutely going into a ton of debt for the points, but we're not paying it off. So what are you really getting out of it? So you want to pay tons and tons of interest for points, you're really not getting points. And so here's the thing. If you want to get into the habit of saying, I want to get my points, make sure you're paying it off. So one of the things I say to my clients is, okay, if you want to go to the grocery store and you want to pay, we'll just say $85 on groceries on this card to get the points, that's fine. The moment you walk outside, I need you to then go onto that app and pay $85 back to the card. Pay it off immediately. Otherwise, there is no real benefit. We're talking about points. There just isn't, because of the amount of interest. So we can get to the habit of paying it off immediately or at the end of the cycle, that is fine. But if we are continuously, increasing the amount, but we're not paying it off, honestly, there is no real benefit. I want you to really think about that. There is no real benefit. That was a really, really great question. Any other questions? This is your time. Financial, legal, we're here. All right. Well, here's what I'm going to say. I really want to thank everybody for coming out. This topic for me is really important. As I said in the beginning, we are not taught this. We just aren't. We are not taught how to spend our money. We're not taught how to save. We're just not taught. And I think that is the hardest part with all of this. The legal piece, we certainly don't talk about death. And so what Karen talked about today is critical. Everybody needs a plan. We all need plans. And so I'll be the first one to raise my hand. I didn't have one prior to last year. But COVID kind of woke me up, right? And so there's things that we recognize that we all talk about, but we don't necessarily take the time to do it. So you got to make sure you do it. So I see a question. What if I can't afford a coach? So here's my answer to that. If you're paying for cable, if you're paying for Starbucks, if you're paying for anything else, you can afford it. See, what happens is we place value on things that are important. There are people who I know who have come to me, and by the time we get down into their budget, let me be clear, they can afford me 10 times more. They really can, but it's where they spend their money. So that's a great question, but it's really about what is the value of getting help. Just like we pay a doctor, right? Just like we pay anybody else. If it's important to you, you will pay. And so part of this is really understanding where you are when it comes to what is important when it comes to your money. And if you really want help, like we get anything else, we can find the money. And so part of what I'll ask everybody is if you don't think you can, at least have a conversation. At least have a conversation. Another, I need you to put these questions in the Q&A, not the chat though. How much money do you need to save to begin saving for a financially secure future? So here's what I'll say. It depends on where you are. Like I start off by just saying, do you even have $1,000 saved? Every client that comes to me is the first thing we talk about. Do you even have 1,000? And if you don't, that's where we start. And most of my clients come to me, they don't have that. So I just say, let's just get to $1,000. And in most cases, we can get there relatively quickly because again, they haven't assessed where their money is going. And because they haven't assessed it, they don't think they have it. And so part of this is making sure that you at least have that. Then once you get that, let's look at, what kind of debt do you have? Do we need to get you out of debt? And then I go back, if we're out of debt, then the next thing is, let's make sure that at a minimum, you have 3 to 6 months worth of emergency fund. What does that mean? All of your expenses each month, I need you to have at least 3 to 6 months. Because of COVID, we've changed it and said 6 to 12 months. Multiply every month by 6, and a minimum have that in some kind of account. And then we start talking about investing. So there's a process here just around where you are, because again, everybody is different. Everybody is different. But it's understanding also the goals that you have, whether you have children or not. I'm amazed at how many people have education funds for their children, but do not have any retirement. One of the things we have to understand is our children can get scholarships and grants. And I'm not a fan of loans, but yes, they can get the loan. Can you get a scholarship, grant, or loan for retirement? You cannot. It is far more important that you are focusing on your financial wellness. And then once you have that in order, then we start saving for the kids. So these are the kinds of things we got to make sure we're having the conversation around, talking about and understanding it, because otherwise then we become 60, 70, 80 years old talking about, I don't have anything. And I just literally in the last 24 hours got a new client. And that is exactly where he is. So let's be clear. Let's make sure we're looking at our situations and taking care of our financial planning the right way. So Eric, you can go ahead and put up the last slide. Again, we are here to help. What I do from a financial perspective, again, it's coaching, and is the one part of my business that I recognize it absolutely can make a difference. If you're interested in joining my 6-week group coaching program, please go ahead. I'm actually offering $100 off for those who are attending tonight. If there's anybody that you know who may be interested, because I know we all probably know somebody. If you have questions, reach out to me. All of my contact information is here. We are here. Don't leave this and then not do anything. Let's make sure that you truly do declutter your legal and financial house. And again, the QR code is here for Karen. If you want that estate planning needs worksheet, which I hope everybody does, having a conversation with her, let's get that legal house in order. These are the things that I think too often we do not talk about. And for everybody on this call, I am asking you, if nothing else, take some time to make sure you're focusing on these 2 items so that you can spend the rest of your life the way you want to. It can be done, but you've got to place the right value on it. And to me, this is absolutely valuable. So with that, I'm going to say thank you again for joining. We will have a survey for this webinar. I am really asking every single person who joined tonight, please fill out the survey. Feedback is really important. We want to know, did we hit the mark? Did we miss the mark? What else could you have learned? Is there something else you want to hear from us? We want to hear that. So please take the time to fill out the feedback form. Again, there's a QR code. You will get the recording of this, which will be available by Sunday. You'll get that via email. The recording will be available until Thursday of next week, and then we will take it down. You will also get a copy of the slides, and that will all come out on Sunday. Again, I thank every single one of you for joining. Have a great night, and make sure you take these steps to declutter your legal and financial house. Good night.
Yes, thank you. Good night.